We are with the Executive Director of the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Mr. Lawrence Taft, and we're here today to find out what he is passionate about.
Well, what I'm passionate about really is the open spaces in Rhode Island. The forests, the fields, the streams, the beaches. I mean, I'm a Rhode Islander native, and I grew up here in Rhode Island, and I really love the open spaces. It's part of my character. I think Rhode Island's got some really special places that need to be preserved, and I'm really pleased that I'm able to work with Audubon to help protect these places and for future generations.
Well,
Thank you very much.
All right, so, this is where I step in. I get to say my remarks. I was driving here this morning up from Newport. I dropped my grandkids off in Newport. They slept overnight. We had gone out to a corn maze last night and had a lot of fun out in a farm field in Connecticut, walking through the corn maze after dark. And this is a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old, my wife and myself, and we had a great time. Remind me to talk about the corn maze in about 5 minutes, okay? Now, interesting thing is I'm driving up West Main Road, and I'm coming across, I just seem to be passing or coming along, Ford Mustangs. You know, can everybody picture a Ford Mustang? All right, and the new ones that are out now, they sort of look like a Ford Mustang. You know, so I saw one, and I didn't think of it. Surprised I saw about 3 or 4. I realized these are really popular cars, and a certain kind of people are attached to them. And then I pulled up in front of the stoplight in front of the Melville, where they go down to the base, and there was a 1970 or 73 Ford Mustang Mach 1, the real deal, okay? But at the same time, they were still Ford Mustangs, whether it was one from 1970 or one from 2012, still not the classic from 1965 as you can picture in your mind a Ford Mustang. Now, why am I getting at that? Well, I think about Audubon. Audubon of 2012, Audubon of the 1970s, Audubon of the 60s, or even Audubon of 1897. Can't really describe what it is, but you know what it is when you see it. And it's a certain brand, and it evolves, it changes. I'm sure the Mustang of this year versus the ones 40 years ago are completely different machines, and one might not recognize it, but you still know what that brand is. And that was the kind of thing that we were thinking about when we went through our strategic plan. And after seeking input from community donors, community leaders, allied organizations, we did adopt this new plan for the next 3 years. Among the big questions that we posed, though, with the folks who talked, what would people mourn the most if we were to disappear? We also asked, might there be some overlap, whether real or imagined, among the missions of the various local environmental organizations here in Rhode Island? And questions like that can provoke some pretty interesting answers. But depending upon who we talked to, the answers we got were really very different in people's view and expectations of the Audubon Society of Rhode Island. And it really depends upon how people interact with us or know about us. Is it through our educational programs, through our sanctuaries, our advocacy on certain environmental issues? Starting to feel a little bit like that tale of the 4 blind men and the elephant. You know, depending upon where you approach the organization, that's what you think it is, but maybe it's not the whole picture. So I guess the overriding question is, what is the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, and why should you or anybody care? Well, here's the answer we came up with. And we found out that if we stick to our very core mission of protecting birds, wildlife, through conservation, education, and advocacy, we're filling a very important niche here in our state that people will continue to support. It's a reinforcement of the brand. And if you were to look at the mission statement of all the other Audubons, whether they're independent or national, which I did, part of this exercise, it's evident that we all approach the same problems that evolve over the years in a very similar ways. Only we're the ones who do it right here in Rhode Island, in our state. So what we learned is that we don't really need to make some big change in direction, no sharp left at the next red light, that we missed the boat somehow. What we really heard was the community say loudly, straight ahead please, hand on the wheel, keep your eyes focused on the road ahead, perhaps even step on the gas a little bit more, honk your horn a little bit more, and let people know we're here. See how that Mustang analogy kind of works in pretty good? You know, speaking of the corn maze, anybody ask me to remind about the corn maze? You know, there are these really cool, okay, thank you. What was that again, Bill?
Hasn't been 5 minutes yet.
Oh, done, okay. Well, anyway. The corn maze idea is that, you know, there's a lot of temptation to go and try to do different things to appeal to people. But people don't really expect Audubon to do things like grow corn and have corn mazes and farm stands and all that. Even though it's a beautiful landscape, what they expect of us is to take care of birds and wildlife and the habitats they live in. It's that Audubon brand. So whatever stances we take, programs we lead, or decisions we make concerning the stewardship of our land, it should all be viewed through the lens of how birds and wildlife have been better protected because of our actions.